Okay, welcome back to another stream. Today we're gonna be looking about the price of Bitcoin. We're gonna be discussing what happened in the last couple hours, and we're gonna be also talking about the recent crazy, like unbelievable, like crypto news that exists, and how is it like matters, and how did it change the price and what's happening right now. So first, let's check what the price of Bitcoin is right now. It's sitting around 86,940. It's been actually kind of stable around the 86,500 to around this for the past like hour or so. But now it's kind of, the momentum is picking up a little bit to like recover all the losses that just happened right now, and we're going to discuss about what happened over here that affected all of this. First, let's just quickly explain what happened a couple hours ago. So looking into here, first I'm using basically the Lux Algo liquidity sweep indicators in TradingView, and it's very nice because it shows you where like the liquidity sweeps like are accumulating. So you can kind of see where prices are trying to go, so they kind of like sweep the liquidity, and then like for like shorting and for longing. So you can, like, for example, see here, this is like a very small area of it. This first one over here actually is like a very small one, which shows that like the price tried very much to reach this area, so it like sweeps the liquidity around this area, so then the people got liquidated, so the price went up more, traveling all the way up here to another liquidity sweep area where it kind of hit but not all the way up. So that's why the price kind of stabilized around this area for a little bit until let's just open that there, until it hit another liquidity sweep area at the top here, where you can see we can see another major liquidity sweep pool that accumulated, and even at the start of this sweep, you can see that a lot of buyers try to buy and reach this certain point, but failed for a pretty decent amount of time, and then there's a lot of bullish sticks that came. Then after that, it tried to hit as well over here, but failed to do so. And then after a little bit, after a lot of buying, it went back up and hit this liquidity sweep. So then the price shot up pretty decent amount, from like 87,200 to like 87,600, which is very interesting. And then over here, we went to the 87,000, and then it stabilized a bit around this area over here, where it also had a major liquidity sweep area going from around 87,500, and the sweep area was around 87,980. So then it will go all the way from 87,500 to 87,980. The price kept stabilizing around this area, trying to hit this major liquidity sweep area, and then after a bit, sellers thought they will stand all the way down to like 87,000, and which they reached, but then the buying momentum hit very hard. As you can see from around this area, there's so much momentum volume, where then it hit the 88,000 mark, which liquidated so many positions. So that's how it reached all the way up here to the $90,000 mark. But but even after reaching like the $89,000 mark, there was other major liquidation positions which also shot up the liquidity, the price to around 90,000. So after that, it tried to even stay over here for a little bit, and like stabilize around this area, because there's another major like liquidation zone at the very top here. So because there's another major liquidation zone, so a lot of buyers try to like kind of buy, so the price will reach this area, and if it reaches this zone, then it would have, and you can see like there's even like a support and resistance, like a line over here. And if it hit this zone, then the price would have shot up by a lot, which is like if it hit 90,400 or around that, then it would have shot up by a lot, because there's so many support and resistance, so major like volume of like liquidity up there. But then after a little bit, the sellers either sold their profit. Some people sold their profits from over here, which shot the price pretty much all the way down here. And then because this was the same level as before the the crazy amount of the crazy difference in price, it tried to also stabilize here. And also you can see at the bottom that there's another shorting, another like basically liquidity sweep at the bottom here, which the sellers try to reach, so they liquidate the longing positions at the bottom. But even after that, the buyers held the position at this area for a pretty long time, trying to stabilize where the price is. But then after a couple of minutes, the sellers sold very fast, which hit the liquidation price at the bottom, which we can see over here, the green line, which liquidated a lot of prices. Then we can see at the bottom here the same thing happened. The same thing basically happened. You can see that even at the bottom here, there's a lot of liquidation that accumulated as well, which is why the price shot down pretty low. Similar to what's happening here, you can see the amount of sellers, the wicks, the amount of sellers is pretty high. And then after that, because there's also a major liquidation event at the very bottom, there's so many like buyers that bought at this time, which shot the price up a little bit. Where you can see the amount of difference between like the sellers and the buyers and their own like wicks is. This is why it didn't kind of hit the liquidation level at the very bottom. This is the sellers trying to hold their position without like losing money or anything. But it's kind of now just kind of in the past couple minutes is stabilizing around this support and resistance level. But it's now like at a pretty much close to an all-time low in the past like couple hours at least. After reaching an all-time high in a couple hours, since literally a couple days. But now it says the price is sitting at 86,600. So basically this this live stream is just about talking about the price of Bitcoin, and we're talking about some recent major like crypto news about that affected the price. Yeah, and now it's sitting around 86,600 and pretty much like kind of stabilized around this area, maybe gaining a little bit of momentum, but kind of losing it. Right now, there's not really many indicators that would help where the price is going, because it's been unstable for the past like couple hours right now. But yeah, but you can see that there's a pretty big liquidation for long positions at the bottom here, which is what the people tried to short towards that area. So that's why there was a lot of buying that happened after it reached this area, because if it reached even at the end of it, or maybe like around this area, it would have liquidated pretty much a lot of positions. So this is why it stayed at this area. So right now the price is around 86,500, and it's pretty much like very staying at a certain level, not changing as much. But you can see here even the sellers are trying to basically hit the liquidation area for the long positions here. If basically if price goes to like 86,000, then it will reach that liquidation level, which will then drive the price even more down. So yeah. But yeah, hey, welcome to the stream, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Right now, the price is at 86,500, which is pretty interesting because at like a couple minutes ago, it reached all the way up to 90,000 and a little bit, 90,200. And even if it reached like 90,400, it would have liquidated so many short positions that it would have even shot up a lot more. But because there's a lot of liquidation at the very top here, so it didn't really. A lot of people like had to save themselves, so they basically hit that area. They invested a lot, so they don't lose their position at the very top here. But right now the market is very equal around this support and resistance zone, trying to go down or under the basically the shorting, the longing liquidity. So now it's around 86,600, which is probably going to stay there for a little bit unless a big major thing happens. But yeah, we can talk a little bit about the news about what recently happened. So over the past several days, the cryptocurrency market has entered a phase that many experienced participants would describe not as panic, but as recalibration. So after months of aggressive upside, strong narratives, and record institutional involvement, prices across Bitcoin and the broader digital asset market have pulled back meaningfully, forcing traders, investors, and analysts to increase what the current environment really represents. Yeah, so now the price is around 86,600, and yeah, there's I think the next time I will just let someone do it for me. I'm weak. Yeah, I understand, because this is very unusual for the price to happen to do that, and there is not even a major news network so to do that. So any major news that hit for it to even drive the prices insane, I think it's just because of the liquidity sweep around here that it triggered all this massive liquidity that hit. But yeah, hey, welcome to the stream. Welcome. It's very nice to have you. But yeah, we can see here basically is the opposite of what's happening at the top here. Now the opposite is happening, where basically sellers are trying to basically liquidate the long positions. So people who already bet that the price will go up will now lose all their money if it hit this level. But this looks very even between the support and resist, the buyers and sellers. You can even see at the very bottom the volume of the market is very similar. There's not much going on trading compared to what happened a couple minutes ago of this and this, which was insane. But yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, this shift has not been driven by a single catastrophic event, nor by a collapse in fundamentals, but rather by a common convergence of macroeconomics pressure, liquidity changes, and institutional behavior, and avoiding expectations about where Bitcoin now sits in the market, in its market cycle. But yeah, when I get rich, I will start trading. Yeah, you should start trading if you have a little bit extra money. It will be very informative to you, because if you start trading when you have a lot of money, you might lose your money very quickly. So even if you have a little bit of money, you should start trading by a little bit of it. But you have to think that you might lose your money if you want to invest, Bitcoin, which only weeks ago was trading at comfortably above $100,000, has since retreated towards the mid $80,000 range, which is what's happening right now, at times dipping lower before stabilizing. This move alone has sparked widespread debate across social media and financial commentary, with some claiming the bull market has ended, and others arguing this is a routine corrective phase within a larger structural uptrend. To understand what is actually happening, it is essential to move beyond price charts alone and examine the underlying developments that unfold over the past few days, many of which have been widely reported by outlets such as Reuters, Cointelegraph, Barron's, and Economic Times, and TradingView as well. Yeah, this looks so risky. Right now, it's very risky because what happened in the last couple minutes, the last like hour or so, like couple hours, was insane. We were live during that time as well, and it hit, basically liquidated a lot of positions. That's why it hit all the way up here, and then you've even tried to hit another major like liquidation spot at the very top, but it failed to do so. So because it didn't reach this area over here, which if it did, then the price would have shot up by even a lot more. But because a lot of sellers held and like basically stopped this area hitting, from hitting, then it shorted the very bottom here, and there was another like longing liquidation at the bottom. That's why sellers stopped it at this very short area. So that's why it went all the way down here, and then it got liquidated at the very bottom, when we can see from the longing liquidity sweep area. Yeah, and now it's even shorter more because of the the longing positions at the very bottom, and now it's trying to hit this very like large long position. How many hours are you live today? How many hours are you live today? I basically was live like for 2 hours a little bit ago, and now I'm live again for another hour and a half or so, for around 2 hours. How do you know which trading direction to take? Oh, this is very hard to take, but you can kind of use your own strategy. So there's things called strategies that you can use in your own trading in your own way. For example, I would suggest using a very simple strategy like a fair value gap or something that you can see from like a lot of markets. But you also have to read where the market is going, because when we were live during this time, we saw that the price was hovering and almost reaching this liquidity spot, and we said that if it reached this area, the price will shoot up like crazy, and it did. So yeah, you have to how do you know which trading direction to take? Yeah, so you have to kind of focus on where the market is going and where the liquidation sweeps are, which strategy you're using, and also the time frame that you're using. For me, for example, I would use like a pretty short time frame, like 5-minute to 10-minute time frame, which is which is in the middle over there, because some people use a minute time frame, some people use a 15-minute time frame. But yes, right now we're looking at a 3-minute time frame actually, which I think is very good for like reporting or like news or something like that. But if you're trading, you should either do it on a longer or time frame, depending on your own way of and your own strategy. Bearish at the moment. Yeah, it's bearish from like going all the way up to 90,000, but yeah, and overall it's literally 1% over the starting price. So it's very, very interesting right now. Very interesting, and now it's hovering around 86,800, and because you can see like a lot of buyers are trying to hold this position so they don't get liquidated at the very bottom here, because there's some liquidity sweeps at the bottom. So it you would see a lot of buying momentum at this area. Can we just follow your instructions for trading? I don't suggest doing that. I just talk about the news itself, because some trading things are like everyone has their own individual strategies that they can use. Yeah, better to have SL right now. Sure. Yeah, stop loss. Yeah. So right now it's just hovering around 86,900, which is very interesting. It's kind of where we started like a couple hours ago at, but it's like was crazy. It was crazy. But yeah, we were talking about some news the other day. One of the most immediate pressure on crypto markets this week came from macroeconomics data in the United States, particularly labor market figures that complicate expansions around interest rate policy. So you kind of like, you have to kind of like understand the policy and understand all the news that is happening, because some news might affect like how well this the market goes, you know. So, for example, like the recent U.S. job data showed continued resilience in employment, which reduced market confidence that the Federal Reserve would accelerate rate cuts in the near term. Risk assets broadly responded to this shift in expectations, with equities showing hesitant and cryptocurrency reacting with heightened volatility. Bitcoin, which has increasingly like traded in correlation with broader liquidity conditions, weakened as traders priced in the possibility that monetary easing may arrive later or more gradually than previously hoped. Yeah, you can see now the price is higher because you can see at the very bottom here, there's a liquidation event for the buyers. So for the long positions. So this means that the sellers over here would want the price to go down, so it hits the position at the very bottom, and the buyers would want to like go as further away from their liquidation area as much as they try to be. That's why the price is like still hovering around this area, because there's liquidation at the very bottom here, which kind of would have hovered here, but because the liquidation was slightly lower and it hit it very fast, so buyers didn't have enough time to react towards that. Kind of opposite from what happened here, where there was a lot of buying volume, but they kind of failed also at the very end to hold the position. But yeah, now 87,000, which is very interesting. The heist has been in a little bit now, a couple minutes. So it might hover around that for a little bit, because we don't see a lot of like other major liquidation areas for the short positions, like other than this one that's around 90,000, which I don't think it will hit anytime soon. But yeah. This macro backdrop is like critical because it frames like much of what happened next. Like Bitcoin's recent rally was not like purely speculative. It was fueled in large part by massive institutional inflows through spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds, basically like ETFs, which collectively now hold over like 1 million Bitcoins or something like that. However, in recent sessions, data showed notable outflows from this product exceeding $350 million over a short period itself. While not catastrophic, these outflows signaled a pause in institutional accumulation and introduced a new dynamic for the first time in months. Basically, institutions are not buying Bitcoin and they're selling more Bitcoin right now, so it's not really a perfect place. Now, ETF flows were no longer like acting as a consistent like tailwind for price itself, so you can't really judge the price based on exactly how like institutions selling exactly or not, you know. And right now it's hovering around 86,118, which is very interesting because there's a support and resistance line that's hovering here for some reason. But despite like these outflows, to be honest, Bitcoin's price did not collapse, but it stabilized like for a very long time around the 87,000. But for some reason it like shot up and went down very quickly a little bit ago. But even now it's around 87,000 region, a behavior that analysts noted as significant in previous cycles. So similar reductions in demand often led to sharp cascading sell-offs, particularly in higher leverage environments. This time, however, like derivatives data show that funding rates remained relatively neutral, and open interest, while elevated, did not unwind violently. This suggests that leverage was not excessively skewed in one direction, and that forced liquidations were not dominating price action. The market, in other words, appeared tense but orderly. So you can see here the price is actually hovering around 87,000, where there's, you can see around here also there's another liquidation event for the shorting positions. So this is why the price will actually might go up again. Yeah, where you can see over here there's a small like liquidity sweep area hovering around basically 87,100 and something. So if it did hit this area over here, it would probably shoot up a little bit more to the top right. So you can see like if it did hit this position over here, it will probably shoot a little bit up, but it's not. That's why like a lot of basically sellers are trying to sell over here so they don't lose their basically they don't get liquidated. Or out of short positions, I mean, try to sell over here. Yeah, you can see the price now is trying to hit this liquidity pool, and if it does hit this liquidity pool, it means that it will shoot up a little bit more. That's why it's hovering around 87,050, which is very interesting. And the liquidity pool is actually very close, around 187,150. So if it only goes up by $100 or so, it might shoot up a little bit more as well from that, which is very, very interesting. But it could do like exactly what it did at the bottom here, where it basically tried to short even more than what it did back here, and here, where it shorted the like it made the price fall because a lot of people got liquidated. But here it couldn't be the opposite, where it like goes up, you can see. But only if it did hit this certain position, the very top. Yeah, you can see now a lot of people are trying to sell. So it like basically people are betting against against Bitcoin, wanting the price to go down so it doesn't like hit this position at the top here. But still, like there you can see it's very, very equal. Even this specific candlestick, literally the like this wicks is just very equal over here. The price now is hovering around 87,000. Because this is a new candle, means people might even start trading with a higher volume. Hovering around $87,000 right now, and it's still very uncertain. As you can see here, there's very equal buying and selling momentum, because buyers are trying to buy here a lot, so they liquidate the shorting positions over here. But sellers are also trying to save themselves, similar to what the buyers did here, where you can see there's a lot of buying that happened here, so they don't like get liquidated at the very bottom. Yeah, so we're just looking at this price because I want to see if it will reach around the 87,150 mark, because if it does, then it means that the price will probably liquidate a lot of short positions, which then would drive the price even a little bit more higher. But yeah, despite these like outflows, Bitcoin's price did not collapse. Like as we said before, it stabilized around 87,000 region. The behavior, like where analysts like noted as significant in previous cycles. So like similar reductions in demand often led to sharp cascading sell-offs, particularly in high leveraged environments. So, but this time, however, derivatives data showed the funding rates remained relatively neutral, and open interest, while elevated, did not unwind violently. This suggests that leverage was not excessively like skewed in one direction, and that forced liquidations were not dominating price actions. The market, in other words, appeared tense but orderly. Yeah, we can see it like here, because a lot of short positions would have got liquidated if it literally hit this position. They tried very hard to like basically either put more contracts or sell their positions, so they basically lower the price even more, so it doesn't liquidate them. So now we're sitting between two like liquidation zones, at the very top or at the very bottom, and if it hits one of them, which it hasn't for the past like couple minutes, then it will most likely shoot up into that direction for a little bit. So if it reaches all the way down here, then it would shoot up all the way down, for a little bit more. Similar to up here, if it reaches this certain position of like 87,150, then it will shoot up even more, similar to what's down here if it reaches 86,140 or something like that. So basically like $1,000 difference. This would then either liquidate the long positions or the short positions. And by the looks of it, both of them are very equal, because at the very start it was basically people trying to liquidate the long positions, while now after stabilizing a little bit or even kicking momentum a little bit more up, it went all the way to around 87,000, and that's where another that's when another liquidity sweep or like liquidity block is sitting right now. So now it's sitting around 86,700. But yeah, when will the price will go up again? That's very interesting, because it depends where exactly it's gonna go. Because if it reached this specific point, then the price will shoot up. But if it reached this specific point, then the price will go down even more, similar to how you see here and here. So we have to wait until either it reaches here or it reaches at the very bottom here. But yeah, parallel to like price behavior, a number of influential analysts released commentary that added fuel to the debate. Some argued that Bitcoin's classic 4-year cycle, basically historically tied to halving events, may be showing signs of structural damage. Structural change. So Bitcoin peaked roughly 18 months after the 2024 halving, aligning closely with what previous cycle timing, before correcting sharply. On-chain indicators such as the spent output profit ratio began trending low, indicating that coins were increasingly being sold as smaller profit or losses. A pattern historically associated with the transition of out of euphoric bull phases. Yeah, the price now is sitting at around 86,900. 86,850, and it's stabilizing around these levels because it doesn't. Both buyers and sellers have their own positions still standing around here. So we, as we mentioned before, if the price arrives at 87,150 around this area, you can see that there's a liquidity sweep at the top. This means that there's a price liquidation that's going to happen, which then will shoot the price even more. So it will first either come here and then shoot more, or at the bottom here, where it will come here and then shoot even more down. But the thing is, because it's been stable for the last couple minutes, it means there's probably new support and resistance levels that is staying at where it probably will stabilize around that area. The thing is, it's been like going up, it's been having an upward momentum for a little bit, so it still might kind of hit this position, most likely before this position, but we have to wait and see first, because right now it's at 86,812. So parallel to previous price behavior, a number of influential analysts released commentary that added fuel to the debate. We already talked about that, but this narrative was not like unconstructed. So research cited by Cointelegraph and Grayscale emphasized that today's Bitcoin market is structurally different from prior cycles. Institutional participants, regulated ETF access, and corporate treasury adoption have introduced sources of demand that did not exist at comparable scale in earlier eras. This participants typically operate on longer time horizons and are less sensitive to short-term volatility, potentially dampening the severity of downwards while extending accumulation phases. This tension between traditional cycle theory and emerging structure demand has become one of the defining debates of the current market. Yeah, it's the same exact issue that we were talking about. This is basically just pure market mechanics, and we're going to talk about like how beyond market mechanics there are like several major news of like developments as well that happened, and we're going to go into each part of it and what each one is talking about. But yeah, now the price is at 86,774. Basically, as we like saw, it's stabilizing around this level because of these two major liquidation events that might hit. So we need to wait and see what's gonna happen soon. Because if it reaches all the way over here, it means that it will most likely get liquidated and even go more higher up. But if it goes down all the way down here, it will also liquidate at the very bottom, which then would shoot the price all the way down. Let's look at the price of Ethereum right now, because it's very interesting. Like, this is not right, but yeah. And silver right now is a very, very, very good investment that happened. It's literally at an all-time high since like months. It's even like an all-time high overall. You can even see here there's a lot of shorting positions for silver that we saw. So you can actually look at the same indicators that I'm using, the liquidity sweeps, because these people are shorting the position, so they bet on silver price going down. If it reaches this price, then they lose all their money, basically their bet. So the price shoots up even higher, similar to what's happening like over here and over here. This is the reason why, like, at this area they tried so hard to hit this specific liquidity point, and then like they hit it over here. That's why it shot up even way faster. If we go back to Bitcoin right now, it's still very, 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 not moving as much as before, because like a couple hours ago it moved very, very significantly, extremely fast, hitting from all the way from 87,000 all the way to 90,000 in just literally a couple minutes, and then all the way down, all the way up from 90,000 to 86,000. So it lost pretty huge momentum. Yeah, so beyond market mechanics, we were talking about, we wanted to talk about several major news development over the past few days. So like it underscores how deeply crypto has become embedded in global and like financial and geopolitics, in Hashkey Holdings and like other regions largest like licensed crypto exchanges. Basically, some crypto exchanges completed a high-profile initial public offering, raising 200 million, over 200 million. The IPO was attended by senior government officials and was widely interpreted as a single signal. Okay, let's continue that. In stark contrast, developments in Africa highlighted the risk of poorly governed crypto initiatives. So, a report cited by Reuters warned that opaque cryptocurrency schemes in the Central African Republic could endanger state assets by enabling exploitation through tokenized mineral concessions and poorly regulated digital currencies. So, while government officials reject the report's conclusions, the episode served as a reminder that crypto adoption without transparency and institutional safeguard could expose nations to financial and reputational risks. So yeah, we can look at the price again. It's still hovering around 86,681. And we're still waiting to see if it will reach any certain level, because right now it's stabilized around this area, which is which is okay because it doesn't mean that there's going to be a very severe difference in price soon. But if it reaches down here or up here, which is what's been happening over here, it's trying to it probably will try to liquidate the opposite side's positions. But yeah, so Bitcoin right now is overall is under like 1.4% since the start, since the market opens. But yeah, and now like corporate strategy shifts into also made headlines. Hut 8, a company also known probably as Bitcoin as a Bitcoin miner, announced a major pivot towards AI data center infrastructure. Oof. So now Bitcoin mining companies are gonna probably try to become AI data center infrastructures now, backed by deals involving Anthropic and Google linked partners. The move reflected a broader trend among mining firms to diversify revenue streams mid changing economics and competition. Investors responded positively, sending Hut 8 stock sharply high. Even as Bitcoin's own price remained under pressure, this divergence illustrates how crypto adjacent companies are increasingly being valued on forward-looking business models rather than just purely on Bitcoin price exposure, which is very interesting right now. You can see the prices are around 86,625, and the interesting thing is that even the latest crypto news from what's it called, TradingView, is only like 40 minutes ago, and that's not even related to the spike that happened, which is insane. I But yeah, individual level like stories continue to shape public perception as well. A widely reported court case in Australia involving former rugby league player Trent Merrin highlighted ongoing issues around custody and trust in crypto ownership. So Merrin was sentenced for misappropriating cryptocurrency funds from a former teammate's account, a case that reinforced a fundamental truth of cryptocurrency ecosystems. So control over a private key equates to control over assets. So and mismanagement or misplaced trust can have severe consequences. This is very interesting. So this means that even something as while as cryptocurrency is still treated as pretty significant like assets in Australia. Now price is hovering around 86,500. Yeah, we saw like it's either gonna go around here or around here, and whichever way it goes around, it will probably get liquidated even more to a certain price. So we just have to wait and see, because this area is very uncertain. It's very like stable around this area. So we don't know where is it gonna go or what's gonna happen. We have to wait a little bit, and then if it goes up here or down here and it reaches all the way at the top here, it will liquidate some some positions. Adding to the mix, prominent investors weighted in with sharply divergent views. Michael Burry, famous for predicting the 2008 financial crisis, publicly reiterated his skepticism towards Bitcoin, calling it valueless compared to assets like gold. While such opinions do not dictate market outcomes, they contribute to sentiment and reflect broader debates within traditional finance about Bitcoin's role as a store of value versus a speculative asset. These perspectives gain traction, especially during corrective phases when confidence is being tested and narrative compete for dominance. So right now the price of Bitcoin is hovering around 86,400, and it looks like there's a lot of shorting going on, a lot of selling going on right now, trying to go all the way down to liquidate the longing positions at the very bottom here. So if this short goes all the way down here, under like 86,150, as we said before, it will basically liquidate a lot of positions at the very bottom here. But I believe soon we will see a little bit of going up and down, because a lot of buyers are going to try to save their liquidation phase, from what you see from like even this specific week, for example. But yeah, taken together about the events that we talked about, the events for the past like few days point a picture of a market that at an inflection point rather than in collapse. Bitcoin's pullback has been significant but orderly. Institutional participation has paused but not reversed wholesale. And broader adoption continues alongside regulated scrutiny and corporate evaluation. For traders, this environment demands discipline and like patience rather than aggressive like conviction. So like and then for like long-term investors, it like underscores the importance of like understanding both macro forces and structural shifts that differentiate the current cycle from those of the past. Yeah, we can see here, you can see how it's like the price is trying so hard to reach this shorting position at the very bottom, and if it goes all the way at the end here, let's actually zoom in a little bit. If it goes all the way at the end here, this area at the bottom, it will liquidate even more prices all the way at the very bottom. But you can see, because this is going to short the positions of the long traders, a lot of long players are going to try to even buy and hold or even try to hit it more towards the other opposite end. But yeah, the price now is sitting around 86,382, or around 86,400 actually, and it's almost 1.6% negative since the market opened itself. But what's interesting is something wild with TradingView is that they didn't post anything in around an hour, which is very unusual for them, specifically not even covering what happened here, which is very insane actually. But you can see even here the position almost hit the liquidation zones, which would have liquidated a lot of basically longing players, and we just need to see where the price is going first before we can understand what's going to happen. But from what I said before about the articles from TradingView, is that this is not like market driven by a single headline or catalyst. It's a market disguised on like basically this existing on extraordinary run, recalibrating expectations and negotiating the balance between speculation and structure. So whether the next major move revolves higher or lower will depend not on belief alone, but on liquidity, policy adoption, and time. Give me 1 second, this is very interesting. But yeah, you can see even the longing positions are trying so hard to not get liquidated at the very bottom here, because at the very bottom here they have their liquidation zones, which I use the liquidity sweep indicator from TradingView. But yeah, it's still very stable right now. It's not really going anywhere up or down. We can see that this is kind of looks like a fair value gap from this around area, so this kind of indicates that it will go up, but at this time it's very uncertain to use these types of indicators, because all of this was supposed to be that, but because there is liquidation sweeps that we can see at the bottom here, this means that the price will most likely was going to dive towards this, and it did. But for us, To understand what's been happening in Bitcoin and the broader like crypto market over the past several days, it's not enough to look into just charts or headlines in isolation. Bitcoin does not like move in a vacuum, but neither does liquidity. So every major move in crypto over the past decade has occurred within a broader macroeconomic framework, shaped primarily by monetary policy, global liquidity conditions, and investor risk appetite. Now, what we're seeing now is another like phase in that long-running interaction where expectations about central bank behavior matter as much as and often more than crypto-specific development. So you can see like the price right now is hovering around 86,500, and this is because at the bottom here, a lot of people trying to hit this liquidation zone for the sellers. So the sellers trying so hard to drive the price down to hit around 86,150, where then it will even shoot the price even more down. But because the buyers will get liquidated, they're still trying to hold their position by buying more, which to stabilize the price, or to also want to hit the liquidation zone at the top here to liquidate all of this shorting positions and all of this like selling areas. But we can also like see that this is kind of a fear value gap that's developing a little bit, but this is still because it's a new candle. It's still very uncertain, and the volume is like very equal between like buying and selling till now. But you can see that yeah, we saw a little bit of fair value gap around this area. That's why the price went down a little bit, but there's still like a little bit more. It's still like very uncertain where the price is gonna go, because this is basically like a stabilized zone area. So at the center of this framework sits the United States Federal Reserve. So we already know what what the Federal Reserve is and how important it was. Now the Fed's role is not to manage like asset prices, but its decision around interest rates, balance sheet size, and liquidity provides provision has direct and indirect consequences of all risk assets, including equities, bonds, real estate, and increasingly Bitcoin now. When traders talk about like macro pressure on crypto, what they are really describing is the transmission of monetary policy expectations through financial markets into asset pricing. So yeah, we're gonna continue to talk about like what the price of Bitcoin is actually right now. It's at 86,000. 86,460, and it's still, as we said, is still like stable around this price from where we started, because it's very uncertain on like if it will like either liquidate this position or liquidate these positions. But yeah, now it's around 86,500, which is pretty interesting. And let's just remove the drawings right now. So right now I have multiple indicators in TradingView. I have the support and resistance levels, which I don't really use as much, but I like having them to see the new ones. Then I have the liquidity sweeps over here. These ones I very much use. They are very important if you're gonna try to trade in Bitcoin or something, to see where all the liquidity sweeps are or where the liquidation is. Also like the liquidation heat maps as well will be very, very helpful. Yeah, so this is kind of why the price is sitting around this, because both traders, both sellers and buyers and sellers don't want to get liquidated around this area. So the buying and selling is very much equal. Of course, it kind of like lowered the momentum since the start over here. But yeah, what are you basically explaining here? Well, I'm saying that because you can see there is a liquidity sweep at the very top and there's another liquidity sweep at the very bottom, the market is very, very equal at this time. Both the buyers and sellers are trying to reach this specific level or this specific level to basically liquidate the other position. So for example, if the long positions, this over here, this area is basically the money of where the liquidity, where the shorting positions are. So if you're betting and saying, oh, Bitcoin will go down, then you will put money and this is where you will lose it if Bitcoin goes up. Same thing as the opposite here. So if you see, like if you're saying, oh, Bitcoin will go up and you're putting money to do it, then this is where your money is going to be. So because there's a lot of like liquidity over here and over here, it means that that both buyers and sellers are trying to reach these specific points in the chart, so they liquidate the other positions, and then the price will shoot in either direction. This is why at this like specific areas they were trying so hard to reach, similar to what's happening here, but the opposite is like hitting. So the buyers tried to liquidate the short positions here, but because the short positions like had a pretty decent amount of volume, so they basically like sold, or like they put short positions here to go all the way down here to do basically the opposite. This is also similar to why when it reached this area, there's a lot of buying that happened here, trying to stop the price from reaching this area to liquidate a lot of people, and if it does, then price will go down even more. Hope that helped. But yeah, now Bitcoin is sitting around 86,400, which is very interesting. And this is very, very, like, it's just basically just not as much volume, or not as much differences happening right now. But the thing is, as I was mentioning, like I was talking about certain like articles, and certain news that happened a couple days ago. So over the past like few days, macro pressure has intensified, primarily because incoming economic data has complicated the markets. Assumption about how quickly and how aggressively the Federal Reserve will ease monetary policy. For much of the year, markets had priced in a relatively smooth transition from restrictive policy towards gradual rate cuts. This expectations was based on the belief that inflation would continue to cool and that economic activity will slow enough to justify monetary easing. However, recent labor markets data has challenged that assumption. But yeah, you can see, like I was saying, it's going to be very, very equal, because both of the buyers and the sellers are trying to both liquidate each other. So there's equal amount of volume that is being shot right here, similar to what's been happening over this area. But right now, I think it's stabilizing around the same area that it was here. But we can see that it almost actually hit the position at the very top here. Yeah, and now it's sitting at 86,455. Yeah, and there's other major news right now. We can look at it, and it's talking about Bhutan, which commits 100,000 Bitcoin to basically develop its mindfulness city, which is very interesting. We can look at this actually to see if there's any trading news about that. Yeah, that's basically just it. Which is very, very interesting. It's around now Bitcoin is hitting around 86,400. We can go back to what we were talking. So basically, like employment figures, this is like showed continued resilience in hiring and wage growth, signaling that the U.S. economy remains stronger than many expected. While stronger employment is positive in a general economic sense, it creates a problem for markets that are hoping for rapid rate cuts. A resilient labor market reduces the urgency for the Federal Reserve to loosen financial conditions. because one of the Fed's primary concerns is avoiding excessive inflationary measures, which remains unresolved if employment stays strong and wages continue to rise, which makes sense. When markets receive this type of data, they don't really wait for the Federal Reserve to act. Instead, they immediately adjust expectations. Futures market reprice the likely path of interest rates, bond yield response, and liquidity expectations shift. This pricing process is what have driven much of the recent pressure on Bitcoin and other risk assets. The market is effectively saying if rate stays higher for longer, the environment becomes less supportive for speculative and growth-oriented assets. So Bitcoin's sensitivity to this dynamic has increased over time. In its early years, Bitcoin traded largely independently of macroeconomics condition, driven mostly by internal adoption cycles and speculative flows. That changed as Bitcoin matured and became more integrated into the global financial systems. Like Bitcoin today trades more like a high beta macro asset, meaning it tends to amplify broader liquidity trends rather than ignore them. And as I was saying, liquidity is the key concept here, and it's often misunderstood. Liquidity does not simply mean money supply or cash in the system. In the market terms, liquidity refers to ease of which capital can flow into and out of assets without causing large price dislocations. Central banks influence liquidity primarily through interest rates and balance sheet operations. But private credit creations, government spending, and financial intermediation also play important roles. Now we can see the price now is actually, yes, this is the issue, because now price is stabilizing around this certain level because both the buyers and the sellers are still trying to hit these specific markers as we were saying again. And if it does hit any of these specific markers, it will most likely shoot up a little bit more over the said markers because it will liquidate other people who bet against it reaching this level. So Bitcoin's price now is around 86,600. And now, as I was saying, so I will continue to kind of talk about how when interest rate, for examples, are low and credit is easy, liquidity is abundant, investors are more willing to take risks because the opportunity cost of holding non-yielding or volatile assets is low. This is the environment in which speculative assets tend to thrive. Conversely, when interest rates are high and financial conditions are tight, liquidity becomes scarce, so capital becomes more selective. Leverage is reduced, and assets that rely heavily on future growth expectations or narrative momentum tend to underperform. We can see here, for example, you can see right now Bitcoin is actually 86,600, which is actually extremely low. It reached all the way down here to 85,000, around that mark. Now it's at 86,570, which is very interesting. But yeah, it's still very we cannot really tell very much where the price will shoot or where the price will go down. But unless it reaches any specific indicator or any specific areas where you kind of understand why it will go down or why it will go up. So yeah, what I was saying is when interest rates are low and credit's easy, liquidity is abundant, But Bitcoin exists at the intersection of these factors. It does not produce cash flows like a bond or a dividend-paying stock, so its valuation is heavily influenced by expectations of future adoption, scarcity, and demand. In a tight liquidity environment, the investors tend to discount those future expectations more aggressively, which which puts like downwards pressure on price even if the long-term thesis remains intact. Now, this is why like the Federal Reserve communication matters so much. The Fed does not need to raise rates for Bitcoin to fall. It only needs to signal that rates may remain high for longer than previously expected. So the markets trade expectations, not actions. So over the past few days, this is like exactly what was been happening. Like data-driven shifts in expectations have led to higher bond yields, a firmer US dollar, and reduced appetite for risk across market. The strength of the US dollar is also another like crucial macro variable. Bitcoin is priced globally in dollars, and when the US dollar when the dollar strengthens, it effectively tightens financial conditions for non-US investors. So a stronger dollar increases the cost of acquiring dollar-dominated assets and reduces the relative attractiveness of alternatives. So historically, periods of dollar strength have often coincided with periods of weaknesses or consolidation in Bitcoin and other risk assets. Right now we can see the Bitcoin price around 86,721, and it's actually shooting up pretty high right now compared to a couple minutes ago. This is also still sellers trying to buyers trying to go all the way up here to liquidate the opposite position. So as I was saying, this does not mean like Bitcoin is an anti-dollar in a simplistic sense. Rather, it means that Bitcoin responds to shifts in global liquidity conditions that are closely tied to dollar funding markets. When dollar liquidity is abundant, Bitcoin tends to benefit. When dollar liquidity tightens, Bitcoin often struggles in the short to medium term. Another aspect of macro liquidity that has played a role in recent market behavior is government bond issuance. So as governments run large deficits, they issue bonds to finance spending. This issuance absorbs liquidity from the financial system. So particularly when central banks are not actively purchasing those bonds. So in recent years, the Federal Reserve has been reducing the size of its balance sheet through quantitative tightening, meaning it is no longer absorbing government debt at the same scale as before. So we can see like the price of Bitcoin now is hovering around 86,700 or 86,800. The buyers are still at it again, trying to hit the 87,150 mark, which will liquidate a lot of other positions. But this is kind of like the buyers and the sellers are opposites over here, trying to both liquidate each other on each side. But yeah, this combination, the high issuance and reduced central bank absorption, effectively drains liquidity from the system. So investors must allocate capital to absorb new bond supply, leaving less capital available for other assets. This is not a theoretical concept. It is like it shows up directly in market behavior when large bonds action coincide with periods of weak risk appetites. Assets like Bitcoin often feel the pressure. So yeah, now it's kind of at a pretty decent high, which is trying to basically the buyers are trying to reach the 87,100 mark, so they still need 300 more to liquidate a lot of what the short positions are. But yeah, it's still hovering around the 80. Yeah, you can see now because there's been a lot of buying, so there's a pretty decent amount of fair value gap that happened. This is why there's a little bit, maybe a little bit more selling, but because it's close enough to the basically the liquidation zone for the shorting supply, for the shorting volume here, then basically a lot of buyers might also step in to try to hit that mark specifically. At the same time, like markets are forward thinking. So while current conditions may be restrictive, investors are always trying to anticipate the next phase of the cycle. This is why what the concept of liquidity cycles becomes like critical. Liquidity does not move in a straight lines, it expands and contracts in waves, driven by policy decisions, economic conditions, and political constraints. Historically, like Bitcoin has like performed best not necessarily when liquidity is already abundant, but when liquidity is transitioning from tight to loose. The inflection points matters more than the absolute level. In previous cycles, Bitcoin began major advances months before rate cuts actually occurred, and as market price in future easing. Conversely, Bitcoin has often struggled when liquidity conditions are deteriorating or when easing expectations are being pushed further into the future. So you can see actually here, we called it correctly here, the we found a little bit of fair value gap. That's why the price kind of like went all the way up here, then it shot back down here. But there's still at least a minute for this candle, for this 3-minute candle to even finish. But we can see that it's already happened over here, which is very, very interesting. That's why you should use your own like strategy and see which strategy works for you, and how you will see and feel how it will works specifically for each person, you know. And I don't suggest using multiple different strategies. You should choose like a certain strategies that you saw and you felt like you understand it, then like work toward understanding it more, so then you can like actually be able to start. Now, so you're saying that like Bitcoin has often struggled with like liquidity conditions when liquidity conditions are deteriorating, or when easing expectations are being pushed further into the future. So what are we seeing now is a market caught between these two states. On one hand, inflation has moderated like compared to prior years, and many investors still believe that rate cuts will eventually come. On the other hand, economic resilience has delayed these expectations, creating frustration and uncertainty. This tension is reflected in Bitcoin's recent price actions, like sharp rallies followed by equally sharp pullbacks. This is what we literally just saw a couple minutes ago. So tight consolidation ranges and elevated sensitivity for more macro data, which Bitcoin did not really was not affected before as much as it is right now. So it's also important to like distinguish between short-term trading reactions and long-term macro positioning. So short-term traders react immediately to data release, headlines, and technical levels. But long-term investors, including institutions, operate on a different time horizon. So they are more concerned with like structural trends such as adoption, regulatory clarity, and the long-term trajectory of monetary policy, rather than like week-to-week volatility. This divergence in time horizons contributes to market instability. So when short-term term traders reduce exposure due to macro uncertainty, prices can fall even if long-term investors remain committed. So conversely, long-term accumulation can limit downside even when short-term sentiment is negative. The result is a choppy, range-bound market that frustrates both bulls and bears. You can also look again at the price of Bitcoin. Is still hovering around this certain area, very stable around this area, which is very interesting. Ethereum also kind of a similar trend, but yeah, we can actually compare Ethereum with Bitcoin over here. Yeah, we can see the price levels actually are very, very similar, but Ethereum's range is extremely different from Bitcoin's range, even though like you can actually compare them exactly where the buying and selling is happening. But the percentages wise, they are significantly different. Like for example, you can see from the start of the day, Bitcoin lost 1.5%. However, Ethereum lost 3.75%. So that's over twice the amount that like Ethereum lost, even though when they started, the difference was pretty much very, very close to each other. But yeah, this is very, very interesting. We still are looking at, like we can see here, there's a support and resistance level that actually accumulated that we can see, and yeah, 100% is existing there, which is very interesting. But now actually we can also assume the same thing after this candle might end. After this candle end, it might become another fair value gap. For example, here when I saw this, I felt like this is a fair value gap that's happening. That's why the candlestick also went down after that. And here might be the same thing, where if it actually went pretty a little bit low, not all the way down here, where if it did reach all the way down here, then it's going all the way down here. But if it did reach around this level area, then it probably will shoot up again, because this is the support and resistance level that we're looking at. Yeah, so we were saying like this divergence in like time horizon contributes to market instability. So when short-term traders reduce exposure due to macro uncertainty, prices can fall even if long-term investors remain committed. Conversely, long-term accumulation can limit downside even when short-term sentiment is negative. So this result is a choppy, range-bound market that frustrates like both of them. Now, Bitcoin's recent behavior fits this pattern. Despite notable selling pressure and negative sentiment, price has found support at levels that suggest long-term participants are still active. This does not guarantee upside though, but it does indicate that the market is not experiencing a broad liquidation event driven by systematic stress. Yeah, we can also look at Bitcoin right now. The price is still hovering around this area. It still didn't change as much at all for the past like hour or so. It's very, very similar, very consistent, because it had a very major like price shift before. So we will probably not see another major shift for a pretty for a pretty long time. Yeah, and we can see that Ethereum is nearly at a minus 4% since the start of the day, which is insane. While all of this is happening, we can see that silver, however, is very, very much winning right now. We can actually remove Ethereum from here because we don't need to see it compared to silver. But silver right now is extremely high. It reached nearly 67. Now it was at like 66.87, and it's now all the way to 66.5, which is insane. It's almost a 5% increase since the start of the day. But yeah, if we go back to here, we can see that the price is still hovering around the 86,480 mark. Another macro factor worth discussing is like global central bank coordination or lack thereof. So like while the Federal Reserve sets the tone for global liquidity, other central banks play significant roles. Diverging policies between the Fed and the European Central Bank and the Bank of Japan and emerging market central banks create complex cross currents in global capital flows. These flows influence currency markets, bond yields, and ultimately risk appetites. For example, if the Fed remains like restrictive while other central banks ease, capital may flow into dollar assets, strengthening the dollar and tightening global financial conditions. If, on the other hand, multiple central banks begin easing simultaneously, global liquidity can expand rapidly, creating favorable conditions for assets like Bitcoin. At that moment, at the moment, markets are uncertain which of like these scenarios would like dominate, adding another layer of like ambiguity. Yeah, and we can see here kind of like what we expected, but we still have to wait for the candle to finish and like understand where the market is going. We saw a similar level of this fair value gap where it might also go slightly positive after this candle finished over here, where we see it happening over here as well. But yeah. And prices right now is sitting at around 86,000. 500 and basically very stable around the 80s, between 87,000 86,100. But yeah, we can see the indicators that I use are like liquidity sweeps, support and resistance levels with breaks, and the volume. These are just, but these are not like really indicators. Like the volume is not really an indicator. But yeah, the thing that I really, the strategy that I mostly use, but you have to kind of understand and listen to and understand how it works, is a fair value cap. So what is it? What's a fair value gap? You can see like, yeah, this is exactly what I was talking about. You can see here, there's a like imbalance that forms on a chart when the market moves so aggressively in one direction. So that normal two-sided trading does not occur. So in simpler terms, price jumps from one level to another without sufficient transactions in between, leaving a gap where buyers and sellers did not properly interact. So this is kind of like what's happening here and here. That's why when I saw this, I said, oh, this probably will be a fair value gap, and it did. That's why the market actually dropped a little bit, similar to what's happening over here. I saw this and said this is a reversal for value gap. Actually, it's the opposite. And then now it's even like going slightly higher. But it's still like equaling. It's still because it's not really a major like volume that's being traded right now. It's still pretty standard, still pretty equal in both buying and selling. So it's the price is still hovering around 86,678. But yeah, so the concept actually of fair value gap comes from the idea that markets seek efficiency. So when price moves too fast, it often becomes inefficient. So later the market may return to that like inefficient zone to rebalance liquidity before continuing to its move or reversing, basically. So how a fair value gap like forms, basically high volume participation over here, and then like, or like maybe a news event or something like that, or stop loss cascade, or institutional like execution. But most of the time it's because of high volume participation. And the most common fair value gap is the 3 candle structure. For example, like this one, or like this one, or like some other ones, or like, yeah, this one, the one that I just showed. For example, the first candle you would see is like a normal trading. Second candle is like also a strong displacement, like a large body maybe. And the third candle is like a continuation, so it's still continuing that thing. Then it also exists when like the low of the third candle is higher than the high, and the high of the first candle. So basically bullish fair value gap, or the high of the third candle is lower than the low of the first candle. So this is like a bearish fair value gap. So basically bullish and bearish fair value gaps forms like the bullish fair value gap like forms during aggressive upwards movement, which indicates strong buying pressure. Price may returns into gap before continuing higher. And the bearish is the opposite. It forms during aggressive downward movement, indicates strong selling pressure, so price may retrace into the gap before continuing lower. So a fair value gap does not really guarantee a continuation or reversal. It only identifies inefficiencies. So there's a reason why the fair value gap matters actually. So because markets are kind of not random, they are driven by order flow, liquidity, and execution. So price moves, and when price moves quickly, orders are filled unevenly. Some participants are left unfilled, liquidity is displaced, and institutionals are like, and large participants often prefer balanced price areas to add positions, exit positions, or hedge exposure. So fair value gap highlights areas where price was not properly auctioned. But yeah, we were talking about how political consideration also matters, like fiscal policy, government spending, and debt dynamics interact with monetary policy in ways that can either amplify or counteract like central bank actions, like large fiscal deficits that can stimulate economic activity even in a restrictive monetary environment, delaying the slowdown that would otherwise justify easing. This dynamic has been evident in recent years and continues to complicate the macro outlook. Bitcoin, as a non-sovereign asset with a fixed supply schedule, is often discussed as a hedge against monetary debasement. That narrative tends to gain traction when liquidity is expanding aggressively and confidence is like fiat in fiat currencies is weakened. Um, when policy is restrictive and the dollar is strong, that narrative tends to fade temporarily, even if the underlying long-term concerns remain unresolved. Some other news is that the EBB a flow of narrative is not random. It reflects shifting macro conditions over the past few days. The dominant narrative has shifted away from imminent easing and towards higher or longer. So as a result, Bitcoin has faced headwinds that does not invalidate the long-term theses, but it does explain the short-term price actions in a way that charts alone cannot. Yeah, understanding this context is critical for anyone trading or investing in crypto markets. Uh, do not like reward certainty; they reward preparation and adaptability when liquidity conditions are tightening. Risk managements become more important than conviction. When liquidity conditions are loosening, opportunity extends, but only for those like positioned correctly. Yeah, so I basically like stream um, I like sometimes stream from uh, I would stream 3 hours ago for like 2 hours, and then I most likely wait 1 hour and then stream for another 2 hours. So I will still continue to stream for another 30 minutes or so, but that's my stream schedule. And now there's another actually TradingView article finally after a very long time of TradingView not even posting anything about Bitcoin, which is very interesting. It's saying, oh, it's not even like sharks add 4.7 billion as Bitcoin low prices attract smaller. Let's see what this is talking about. So basically saying Bitcoin's recent price drop below 90,000 has given sharks an opportunity to increase their reserve at a discounted rate. The large cryptocurrency by market capitalization is currently trying to shake off a flash crash. Yeah, it's around 85,000 over the last, now it's around 86,475 over the last 40 hours, and it's changing hands around 87,000 at press time. While there are growing fears at that price dump to 70k is in the cards, long-term hoarders like sharks and MicroStrategy are continuing to make massive purchases. What are Bitcoin sharks? So in Bitcoin terminology, sharks refer to like market makers such as high net worth individuals, trading desks, or institutions that hold anywhere between 100 Bitcoin and 1,000 Bitcoin. They are mid-level investors just below whales, but large enough to influence market sentiment. and price movements throughout their own on-chain activity. Yeah, you said I see the market still bearish after the pump up a lot. I think I still have a lot of liquidations at the moment. Yeah, there's still a lot of liquidations that are waiting at these certain areas that we saw before, but because the prices are not changing as much and the price is still sitting pretty calmly around the 87,000 mark. Yeah, around 87,000 mark, like 86,500 mark. That's why it still didn't really. There's not a lot of liquidation happening right now. Liquidation still will happen after it reaches either like the 87,150 mark or the 86,150 mark. Basically, that $1,000 difference. Now, according to statistics from like major analytics website, sharks are sharply increasing their Bitcoin purchase around the current spot levels. So based on like the graph that they had, the total Bitcoin holding of these mid-level players have increased from 3.52 million Bitcoin to 3.57 million Bitcoin, representing an increase of 54,000 Bitcoins, around $4.7 billion in the last 7 days alone. So the sudden spike is evident on the graph, indicating that confidence these investors have in the premier like digital asset, despite the rising odds of a pending downturn. Now, there's something that's happening. Like sharks are still buying, but whales are selling for some reason. So while sharks are like we're busy buying the dip, big players, aka whales, dumped a large amount of Bitcoin in the market, which resulted in the current bearish setup. Here's a uh, basically there was like large whales, small whales with 10,000 to 100,000 bitcoins, and large whales with over 100,000 bitcoin have engaged in significant selling activity over the last 2 months, resulting in the current bearish setup. The trend for smaller whales is even more interesting, as they have spent large part of the 2025 calendar year dumping huge amounts of Bitcoin in the open market. And even amid their negative actions, the price has seen ups and downs over the last 12 months, showcasing resilience and amid massive like selling pressure. The large whales have only started selling since October, directly affecting the markets. It remains to be seen how these market players will act in the near future, but expect Bitcoin to stay under pressure if this kind of selling persists. That's very interesting. This is ZY Crypto, a new article that dropped recently. And now Bitcoin is still hovering around 86,522, and we're still watching any new news that is happening, but there isn't really much. Michael Saylor also talking about quantum computing for some reason. Now, Michael Saylor is a very pro Bitcoin level, Bitcoin, like he's the owner of Strategy. We can see like what he's talking about actually. Yeah. Now Bitcoin is still around 86,555. Not much change. And you probably understand like another reason like to understand what Bitcoin and the broader like crypto market is doing right now. It is essential to move beyond like surface level price action and look at like how capital is behaving beneath the chart. So price alone tells us what happened, but flows, positioning, and on-chain data helps explain why it happened and how different groups of market participants are responding. So over the past few days, this underlying behavior has revealed a market that is cautious, selective, and increasingly like hard between short-term traders and longer-term allocators. But yeah, now Bitcoin is sitting at around 86,490, which is very interesting. Now, I want to talk about some other crypto news that happened recently, um, and what we can learn from them, and what some other things is happening. Yeah, 1,000 others laughing everyone who said Bitcoin was going up. Well, yeah, it did shoot up pretty high, and now it's going down like almost $4,000 difference right now. Now, some pretty nice news. Do you think Bitcoin will go up to 100,000? Probably not by the end of the year, but it will go up, but not anytime soon. We want it to shoot up a lot higher, but for now it still will stay around 87,000, maybe around that level, but not over 100,000 by the end of the year. Now, there's some pretty good news from the pretty interesting news from the Guardian. So Marshall Islands launches its first universal basic income scheme via crypto. So the Marshall Islands have launched the world's first national universal basic income programs that allows citizens to receive regular payments via a government-backed blockchain wallet using a US dollar pegged stablecoin. The program is funded by a multi-billion-dollar trust and is aimed at combating rising costs of living and population decline. Now, adoption has been modest so far due to infrastructure constraints, but it represents a substantive experiment in sovereign crypto use for public welfare. This is very interesting. I find this news very, very, very interesting that Marshall Islands. It's all about politics. Well, yeah, of course, politics affected, but Bitcoin recently has been it used to not really affect it as much, but now even small news might even affect it a little bit as well. Now, the US OCC gives initial approval for crypto firms to launch trust banks. The US Office of the Comptroller of the Currency granted conditional preliminary approval for major crypto firms, including Ripple and Circle, to operate as national trust banks, extending beyond state-level charters. These charters enable cross-state operations and deeper integrations with the traditional financial system. Although they do not allow deposits for lending or without further approvals, this marks a significant step towards regulations and institutional adoptions in the US. So yeah, you can actually see here Bitcoin price, as we talked about how it's very, 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 very stable right now. It's not really that much difference. There's not really much buying and selling volume right now. Because both sellers and buyers are trying to both hit each other's liquidation zones around this area over here and around this area over here. So if the price actually dips below 86,000, 100 around this area, then it will liquidate a lot of longing positions. This is what why the selling is happening over here. Similar thing to if the price even shoots up and hits anywhere of this position at 86,000, 87,150, then it will also liquidate the other positions that have the shorting positions against Bitcoin. But yeah, we have other news like JP Morgan launched a tokenized money market fund. So basically JP Morgan Chase announced a new blockchain-based tokenization money market fund called My On-Chain Net Yield Fund, or MONY, seeded with $100 million of the bank's own capital, designed for both institutional and high net worth individuals. Shares will exist on decentralized networks, example Ethereum, signaling deeper Wall Street integration with crypto infrastructure. This launch follows the Genius regulatory framework and is viewed as a major step in bridging traditional finance and digital assets. Now, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP are still continuing to citing as risk assessment sentiment risks as well rises. So major cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin right now, Ethereum and XRP have continued downwards moves, contrasting with gold's strength. Analysts note Bitcoin is behaving more like a risk asset closely correlated with tech stocks, undermining the narrative of Bitcoin as a safe haven ledge. Now, markets are showing increased correlation to risk sentiment and reduced appetite for high volatility assets. Yeah, and some other news that I talked about the other day is global risk flagged, Pakistan and Binance MOU on tokenizing sovereign assets. So Pakistan signed a memorandum of understanding with Binance to explore tokenizing up to $2 billion in sovereign and real-world assets. This expansion marks a major regulatory and technological collaboration aimed at introducing blockchain-based asset management and trading within the country's financial infrastructure. But yeah, now Bitcoin is sitting at around 86,300, and there isn't really any major shifts right now we're seeing. But because right now it's actually pretty low, going like closer to where this low is, where it will try to even go lower to liquidate the long positions, but it has to go still low around $200, which it probably won't do. Yeah. So yeah, we have also like Bitcoin has experienced like rapid swings as before. Yeah, you can see right here, which is what happened right there. If this price goes all the way down, as we mentioned before, it will probably liquidate some other positions. But right now there will be more either positive, like buying or selling. Yeah, you can see right here exactly how we said it might be. If it reaches this shorting position, it will liquidate some other prices. But because it didn't reach it yet, it reached all the way down here to 150. Then it will liquidate a lot of other people, so the price will even go more down. But because it didn't reach this specific area yet, we have to wait and see. But now it's hovering around 86,200, which is very, very interesting. And you can see now the new candle started, and it's still having more sellers than buyers. So it's sitting around 86,185. So if it reaches like, I would say 100, around 86,100, then it will liquidate a lot of positions. But yeah, how do you know about liquidity? Well, you can use certain indicators. For example, there are a lot of different meanings of liquidity, but the way that these indicators use it, like for example, the one that I'm using right now is the Lux Algo Liquidity Sweep. So it basically like tells you where a lot of liquidity positions are. So if it hits that certain position area, then the price will basically liquidate a lot of other people. You can also use like liquidation heat maps, which see, so when it reaches like 100, yeah, it should even like drive lower now, even more low. Yeah, see, because it reached nearly like 150 around this area. Now it's 170. It will go even lower because the liquidity sweep is very high. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, around 86,000. We were talking about this. We already know that it's up or down. Yeah, it's down because you see down for a little bit, but then it will stop. Like for example, it might stop around this area or maybe a little bit down because see, it went down a little bit more because you can see, as I was saying before, there's a liquidity sweep at the very bottom for long positions. It's still going down pretty fast. Oh, there's so many liquidations that are happening right now. Yeah, we knew what was gonna happen. We knew it was gonna happen. We saw it. We literally saw it. But yeah, this is because it would have been the opposite if it hit this specific thing, this specific short liquidity over here. So because what happened here, should I go for the short now? No, you do your own thing, because now it already like shorted the position. So you would have bet it short even before that. Yeah, you have to do your own strategy and check what strategy works for you and what do you agree on, what you don't agree on, what you think happens or what you think like works. But for here, like for example, you can see it went all the way down to 85,900 from like around where we were standing at around 86,300. So almost $400 off. Also over 2% loss since the market start, which is very, very interesting right now. Is this the lowest it's been in a very, very long time? That is very interesting. Yeah, you see a lot of buyers are trying to buy over here. That's why it did another long position. Yeah, see the buyers, because the market, the candle started, so there's a lot of buyers. Yeah, now if it hits this specific longing position, position, it will liquidate a lot of longing people. So this means that yeah, now a lot of buyers are going to start to buy because they don't want to get liquidated here. So if it hits this specific area, let's go down actually. So if it hits this specific area, it will even go down even more, but it didn't do that. So right now, both buyers and sellers are very equal, and because sellers already got liquidated here, they don't want to get liquidated even more, or like not liquidated, but like lose money even more. So they're gonna try to hold off over this specific liquidation zone over here, or liquidation box. But because sellers right now are dominating, we can see that it's still like very equal between sellers and buyers here. Yes, it's even after over the minute candlestick right now, it's very, very equal between buyers and sellers. But yeah, we need to still wait and check if it will continue in this specific area, or will it even go down more, because we have to see if it will also get liquidated or not at the end, at the bottom here. Because if it reaches also this specific area, it will even go shut a little bit more down as well. Yeah, see, now sellers are still trying to sell more. Sorry, they're trying to like liquidate the long positions. So it's very, very interesting how that works. So it literally, if it reaches this specific area, or like around this area, it will liquidate even more, and it will drop the candle to like around here area. But if it doesn't reach it, because there's still a lot of buyers that are buying, as you can see from this candle wicks, then it will stop around here and will continue around here for a little bit, because this is still like very, wait, let's see actually. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of buying potential that's happening right now. A lot of people are still buying because it's very low and they already got liquidated here, so they might want to open in long positions as well. But this is still very hard, because there's still pretty much an amount of liquidity sweep area here. Yeah, as I was saying, Bitcoin price whipsaw on macro influence. So let's quickly, like, yeah, see, yeah, if it reached this, then it will get liquidated, then it will shoot down more. We saw that it happening. We saw it happening like that. We even called it. We know it's gonna happen. Yeah. So if you had like your take profit here anywhere, then you would have like made a pretty decent amount of money. But because it's still uncertain, and because look at the amount of like difference here, it's kind of wild how to see that. But yeah, it's now hovering over around 85,820. Yeah, we knew that when if it hits 86,150, it will drive even lower, and it did. But now I think because they already got liquidated at the very bottom here, there's still a lot of people trying to hold the position. But because this is basically equal amount of buyers and sellers, this one buyers are a little more. Now, Bitcoin has experienced like rapid swings. We talked about this actually, including like falling below 88,000, which is happening right now. It's around 85,861 after brief rallies. This volatility has been driven in part by macro sentiment shifts, and risk-off reactions from broader markets, illustrating how quickly crypto prices can retrace when broader risk assets weaken. So we can see, oh, it even like hit that. It already hit that a bit, but because we cannot see the remaining, like if you had a liquidation heat map of, or if you had something that shows you even more liquidation, it will show you like where the next price wants to go, and by seeing where it wants to go, you might really see how to trade yourself and know exactly where to place your long or your short position. So you can see here it's around 85,700, but because we cannot see where the next long or short position, long or short liquidity sweeps are, we cannot deduce where exactly the price wants to go. So so you understand what's happening, you know. Now, recently, weekly summary indicates continued market uncertainty with crypto, navigating macro pressure, rate expectations, and institutional flows. This highlights persistent volatility and underperformance relative to like earlier market highs, emphasizing macro influence and liquidity dynamics. Yeah. Another like news I talked about in one of my other videos is Tether. You know, the USDT tried to actually buy Juventus, the football club itself. It submitted like a $1.1 billion bid to acquire Juventus, an all cash bid even. Though the bid was rejected by the club's holding company, it reflects like how like crazy like growing ambitious and capital deployment by major digital assets firms into real world assets and like legacy brands, with implications for like crypto capital strategy and brand integration. But yeah, this is very interesting. We knew that if it hits this area, we were talking like a little bit ago, when price was still stable around this area, we knew that if it hits this specific area, it will still it will like the price will shoot up. But because we saw it around here and we decided that, oh, it will actually hit this specific area, the price shot down, and it did shoot down pretty significantly, nearly like basically 1,000, yeah, around 86,300 area to 5,700, so nearly 8,000. Yeah, Juventus from Series A. It tried like Tether USDT tried to buy Juventus. Literally put a $1 billion bid that tried to buy it, but the football the owners of the clubs rejected it because you know it's still in their name. But yeah, additional like verified context, like, and while not like breaking today's news, these broader developments like help frame the recent like environment, and are verified by like reputable reporting. So macro market slides are affecting like crypto sentiment. So broader like crypto sell-offs in December. I know that team, Ronaldo. Yeah, it was Ronaldo's previous club, correct? That's true. Yeah, he used to play there, and a lot of like other famous players also used to play there. So yeah, USDT actually tried to buy that club. It's very, very interesting. So it would have been owned by basically like a cryptocurrency company. When I become president, I'll make, yeah, we're rooting for you now. We're gonna vote for you now. But yeah, that's very interesting. So Bitcoin now is hovering around 85,900 after it got like basically hit this liquidation zone for a lot, like for the long positions. So it went all the way down from 86,400 area to around 85,700, and now the other positions are still up here. Like as the other shorting positions are still pretty much up until they unless they took their they're like basically unless they're sold their positions. But it's very interesting now. But yeah, even if we look at trading views, any recent like Bitcoin like stories, they don't really have that much like they're not really talking about the price swings that happened, the insane price swings that happened from Bitcoin. They just talked about Michael Saylor's like predicts quantum computing will make Bitcoin stronger and scarcer. I the thing is with quantum computing and Bitcoin, because quantum computing means there's basically unlimited computing power. You can just basically break any like key or any like password. So including like your Bitcoin wallet's password. So if quantum computing actually like started existing and started becoming like pretty popular, then this would be kind of hard. Yeah, the prices are going up now. Yeah, because it already hit a lot of liquidation areas. So it most likely will like stay here or will like stabilize a little bit unless we see another like liquidation areas at the bottom. Then sellers will start to actually hit more to try to liquidate the long positions at the very bottom. So we still have to like wait and see if any new liquidity sweeps occur. But this is very interesting over here. But yeah, it's very interesting, very interesting. Now, like market participants are adjusting strategies, and after a significant downturn that like saw Bitcoin drop 30, so yeah, so it's very interesting. Let's actually like show you how like these indicators are like very useful. For example, if we go up here, we can see the reason why Bitcoin actually shifted all the way to the very top here, and that why like it didn't go all the way to the top. So if we go down here, the start of the price increase, we can see that there's basically like smaller liquidity sweep areas, basically liquidity pools, where when it hits that, it goes up a little bit, and then over here the same thing. When there's another liquidity pool here, it hit that specific shorting liquidity pool, so it basically increased the price because a lot of people got liquidated. A lot of their bets against Bitcoin going down got liquidated. Same thing happened here. It kind of stabilized a little bit, and then at the very end over here, it basically it got hit with so much buying that it very quickly liquidated so many shorting positions all the way to the like 90,000 and something dollars, which is very interesting. Which actually, interestingly enough, if it went all the way over to $90,400, it would have liquidated even way more positions. But because there's a lot of like higher higher bets, and because 90,000 is a specific major level as well, a lot of people have their price on like shorting here. So that's why a lot of people like either like sold or put bets against Bitcoin. That's why the price fell pretty significantly. But even like going up here, it was a lot of people actually put like even smaller liquidation zones that you can see as well here. So this is why, for example, after hitting this liquidation zone at the very top here, it went even more up here. So yeah, if it even hit this specific like liquidation zone around 90,400 and something, or like 90,400, then it would have shot up in like way more than what we saw here. But because a lot of people came and sold at that time, they drove the price down to not like lose money if they had their prices, what's it called, they had their like stop losses or something like that area. But yeah, Bitcoin now is at around 85,900. Yeah. You can see at the very bottom, it's the same thing, smaller like liquidity sweeps that are happening. Like a lot of like they tried to hit all the way down here, and after it hit this specific area also, it went and got liquidated all the way down here as well. Same thing to over here, liquidated all the way down here, and tried very hard for a it tried very hard to what's it called, liquidate even more. So for example, if the price reached this specific point, like what we saw here, this over here would have been like happening right now over here. So it wouldn't have happened after all of this standard like no change that's happening after all of this stabilization, after all of this like support and resistance that occurred, that like the new support and resistance that happened. But yeah, it's very interesting. The price is still at around 85,811, and for some reason, like even TradingView is not really showing any new news about the crazy price that it went to, like nearly 3,000, over $3,000 difference in just a couple minutes, in like an hour, in less than an hour. And what's happening right now? Some people even got liquidated here as well. I think we already showed that. Yeah, and even after they got liquidated, the price still going up because they already got liquidated, so they're trying to save a little bit. But yeah, it's hovering now around 85,800. We don't really see the other what's it called, the basically the buying liquidity, the long liquidity pool, where the price, if it hits, it will go down. But we can see where the short liquidity pool is at a continuation from where it started at the first strategy, which is very interesting. But yeah, Bitcoin now is sitting at around 85,700 or 85,800, and I think it will stay here for a pretty decent amount of time, and then it will change later. That's what we saw here. We saw that Bitcoin will start around this. This is where we started our live stream, and this is what we saw where it continued until we saw that it will actually hit one of these liquidation zones. Where it hit this liquidation zone, would then affected this pretty much immediately. But yeah, so this was it for today's stream. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on anything, and